Hey guys, Christoph the Polish Geek, and I have a review for you of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And to no one's surprise, the movie was an insult to the franchise. Yeah, like the movie was very bad. And I don't know what type of fool I even was to hope that this movie might even be good. Yeah, because when I saw the trailer, and I remember even making a reaction to the trailer, I actually, for some reason, deluded myself into hoping that maybe the movie won't be that bad after all, because the trailer did look pretty good, but what I was even thinking, especially that the team working behind it, James Mangold is a phenomenal director, but Kathleen Kennedy and the company, how could I even expect this to be any good? But oh well. I don't know what I was thinking. But to give you a short idea, the first 15 minutes of the movie, which are basically a flashback of Indiana Jones escaping from the Germans on the train, that's a phenomenal scene. And literally when I was watching it, I thought, yeah, that's the old Indiana Jones I know and love. Yeah, because that was classic Indiana Jones, and that scene was by far the best part of the movie, and it's so phenomenal, and it's so shame how later it just gets so terrible. But that's right, the first 15 minutes are the flashback of young Indiana Jones, and that scene is simply fabulous. And even the CGI on the young Indiana Jones, it actually looks decent. Because CGI nowadays rarely looks ever any good, but here, surprisingly, it actually looked pretty decent. But that first scene, fabulous. Now let's talk about what later is happening. First and foremost, Indiana Jones is like an old man now. And while this isn't necessarily a bad idea in and on itself, he is so melancholic, so sad, and made so incompetent, and instead we get introduced to a new character, his goddaughter, Helena Show, and her character is so annoying, and she insults Indiana Jones at every opportunity and shows and tells him how much better she is than him, and what did he even do to her, that she hates him so much? And their chemistry is so terrible. At the end of the movie they do, in the end, make up and kind of end up liking each other, but it feels so unearned. The character of Helena Show is just so annoying, and every single interaction of her with Indiana Jones, the movie obviously thinks you should be agreeing with her, but I can't help but agree with Indy, because Indy makes perfectly valid points, while she is just annoying. And another dumb scene in the movie is how Indy says he doesn't really believe in supernatural. He saw some weird things, but he doesn't believe in supernatural. Seriously? That's the guy that seen the Ark of the Covenant and the ghost. I mean, yeah, he closed the eyes, but he obviously believed in it. And then he saw the Holy Grail's magic power to heal. And then, of course, he even saw aliens in the crystal skull. And he doesn't believe in the supernatural? Are you kidding me? And even some ideas that could actually make for a good story are just used so terribly. For example, we learn early that Indiana Jones' son from Crystal Skull, played by Shia LaBeouf, we learned that he was killed in a war because he enlisted in the military and died. And as a result, Indiana Jones got into an argument with Marion, whom he married at the end of Crystal Skull, and they divorced again. And while that could set up for a very actually interesting story, I think, it literally feels like it was only for the sake of writing him out of the movie. The death of Indiana Jones' son, it should be treated as a tragedy. It would perfectly also rationally explain why Indiana Jones now is so sad, so depressed. It would make perfect sense, but instead, it's mentioned only a few times, and it literally feels as nothing more than an excuse to write out a son out of the story. And as I said, it actually sounds like a perfectly interesting story and tragic, honestly. It could have totally worked, but instead, it's nothing more than just a few lines to explain why he's not in a movie. That's right. and the ending of the movie feels so forced. It's certainly better than what the original leaks said the ending was, because the original leaks said that Indiana Jones was supposed to be completely erased out of the existence, and thankfully that's not what happens. But it's quite obvious that it was reshot, like, because everything else in the leaks was true. So it's obvious that originally that certainly was intended to be the ending, but instead, because the audience rightfully got angry, and obviously that's not what anybody wanted, they had to reshot the whole ending. But now it's pretty obvious that that's not the ending that was initially planned, and as a result it feels very forced. Like Indiana Jones, and now we're getting into spoiler territory because I'm going to spoil now the ending. Indiana Jones gets back into a relationship with Marion. Yeah, his annoying goddaughter, Helena, she's basically the one that helps him to reunite with Marion. But instead of building up to it, instead it's literally just like a last scene. It's pretty obvious that this was a last minute decision rather than a true story plot point that they intended to do, because it feels so forced. The story of Indiana Jones' son being dead and Indiana Jones struggling and having troubles with Marion, that could set up for a very interesting story, but instead like it almost feels like a lazy way to write out the son out of the story, and the ending, it's pretty obvious that that's not what they originally aimed for. Just wrote whatever because they knew that the fans would not accept their initial planned ending. And Mads Mikkelsen as the main villain here, oh gosh, he's so forgettable. Like, Mads Mikkelsen often does a good job at playing villains. Like, he was awesome as Le Chiffre in Casino Royale. And he's done a pretty good job as Grindelwald in Secrets of Dumbledore. But here, he's just so forgettable, so bland. Like, I barely even remember anything about him by now, actually. Because he's so bland. And his motivation, while pretty interesting in some ways, is literally stated only at the very last act of the movie. And even the movie itself doesn't really feel like, because the amazing thing about the Indiana Jones movies has always been that they were like adventure movies, like treasure hunt adventure movies, but they always felt so fresh, so unique, like hard to explain, but there was something so always that felt so special and unique about them. But this movie doesn't even feel like a classic Indiana Jones, outside of the first opening of the movie, which again I'll repeat was fabulous. But this feels like some cheap rip-off of an Indiana Jones movie. If I, for example, just randomly saw this movie on a TV, I would probably think to myself, some cheap rip-off of an Indiana Jones, because that's literally what it felt like. And that's literally what it felt like. Like, other than Harrison Ford being in a movie, it literally felt like some cheap rip-off of Indiana Jones. That's right. And I'm going to talk about it because some people have some amazing ideas of what a truly good fifth Indiana Jones movie could be like. And because I love some of those ideas, I really have to mention them in this video. I was saying that Indiana Jones 5 was a perfect example of a movie we never needed. But honestly, as some people have pointed out, and I really like those ideas, if they really wanted to make a fifth Indiana Jones movie and make it work, a perfect idea for a great story would be Indiana Jones and adult Short Round teaming up for a final adventure. Short Round has always been one of my favorite Indiana Jones characters, and Temple of Doom is actually my favorite Indiana Jones movie. I know, unpopular opinion, but that's my opinion. And an amazing story. So yeah, an amazing story. They could still keep the plot point of Indiana Jones' son being dead and his relationship with Marion being fractured again due to that, but it should not be treated as just like something that's mentioned a few times. It should be an actual tragedy for Indiana Jones. It should actually put him into depression, and his separation from Marion should be more due to him growing like distant and lonely, as opposed of her blaming him for her son's death, and in some ways it could actually be an interesting point that she actually wants to get back to him, and then when Indiana Jones and Short Round team up for a final adventure, that's when Indiana Jones discovers himself again. He basically finds a new purpose in life, and finally that helps him to move on from his son. Like, yeah, that could set up for a perfect, interesting, amazing story. And of course, in the end, he would again repair his relationship with Marion, but in this case, it would actually feel earned, not just a last-minute throwaway scene. And especially that in Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones actually allowed Short Round to wear his hat. So that could also be an interesting way to pass on legacy. That in the end, Indiana Jones retires with his wife Marion. He repairs his relationship with her and retires and chooses to live the rest of his life with her. But while he gives the hat to Short Round, and that way he passes the torch. And Short Round is basically now a new Indiana Jones. That could, and also Willie Scott could also make an appearance too. And plus, the villains would not even need to be Germans. Instead, they could do Soviets again. Like Crystal Skull had Soviets as villains instead of Germans, and I thought that was perfect. Like the movie takes place after World War II. There is no need for Indy to continue fighting Germans, Nazis. No, instead, like the Crystal Skull made a wise choice by making Soviets the villains instead, and I think that this movie should also use the Soviets instead, because the Nazis are defeated at this point. But yeah, like the idea of Indiana Jones teaming up with adult Short Round, that would be an amazing story. But at this point, it's been proven that Hollywood doesn't care about good storytelling one bit. They just care about cashing on nostalgia and pushing political agenda. That's all they care about. But ultimately, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was an insult to the franchise, but oh well, I should not have been surprised. It should have been expected. So, yeah, but soon I'm going to do now ranking of all the Indiana Jones movies. And okay guys, so here is my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It admittedly was probably more of a rant than a review, but here you have it. And please subscribe to this channel, press the like button, and I'll talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you soon, bye!